Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That small decision you have been circling for days, stop running from it. The enemy is working overtime today for one reason and one reason only. He knows what that one choice unlocks. It all shifts today. The stagnation, the confusion, the feeling that nothing you do matters. But hear this clearly, because this is the part most people miss. It is not shifting because the conditions finally got perfect. It is shifting because you are finally standing in front of the right door. Think back to that moment earlier this week when you almost made a decision and then pulled back. Maybe you almost sent the message. Maybe you almost said yes to the opportunity that made your heart race and your fear louder at the same time. Maybe you almost walked through a door and then convinced yourself the timing was wrong. You thought that hesitation was wisdom. But let me tell you what heaven saw in that moment. It saw you being positioned, not paralyzed. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment scheduled before the foundations of the earth. And the fact that you are still here, still watching, still searching for an answer, that itself is a signal. You are standing at a threshold. Stay until the very last second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to show you why the choice in front of you is not as small as it feels. I am going to hand you the spiritual framework that reveals what your hesitation has actually been protecting. And at the end, I am going to give you a declaration so specific that the moment you speak it, the enemy's strategy against your momentum collapses. Do not scroll away. Your future self is on the other side of one decision, and if you leave now, you leave before you understand which one it is. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. Something has been pressing on you that you cannot fully name. It is not sadness exactly. It is not anxiety exactly. It is this suspended feeling, like you are standing in a hallway between two rooms, and every time you reach for the handle, something pulls your hand back. Maybe you woke up at 3:0 inches the morning this week and laid there in the dark running through scenarios. What if I choose wrong? What if I already missed it? What if the window closed while I was trying to figure out the right move? Or maybe it was not the middle of the night. Maybe it was in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, doing something completely routine, when this wave of urgency moved through you. A feeling that something needs to happen, that something needs to change, that you are one choice away from a completely different life, but you cannot see clearly enough to move. You feel like you are in a fog, like the signal is there, but the frequency is just slightly off. And in that fog, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. Listen to what has been replaying in your mind. He has been telling you that the reason you feel stuck is because you are not ready, that there is something missing in you, that the people who step into their destiny do it because they have something you do not have, yet more clarity, more faith, more resources, more time. He has been pointing to every small choice you did not make and calling them evidence. Evidence that you are someone who hesitates. Evidence that you will always be on the edge of your breakthrough, but never through it. He has been replaying the moments. The conversation you did not start. The habit you dropped after 3 days. The prayer you prayed and then quietly stopped believing. He is using your own history to build a case that your one small choice today will not matter anyway. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Joshua 3:5 says, "Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you." Listen to that word, sanctify yourselves. That is a one-day instruction, a one-step command, not a complete overhaul, not a perfect record, not a spotless past, one act of consecration. One choice to position yourself before what God is already moving. The wonder was already scheduled. The miracle was already in motion. The only thing standing between you and it was one act of alignment on your part. You are not disqualified because of your hesitation. You are not behind because you pulled back last week. You are not in a cycle of almost. You are in a moment of preparation. The fog you feel is not confusion sent by the enemy. It is the weight of significance. It is what it feels like when a choice actually matters, when what you do next has real consequence in both directions. You have been treating that weight like a warning sign. But that weight is a compass. The heaviness is not telling you to stop. It is telling you that you are close. That moment you pulled back from earlier this week, the message you did not send, the door you did not walk through, the yes you swallowed back down, that was not weakness. That was not disqualification. That was the final moment of stillness before activation. You are not someone who keeps missing their window. You are someone who is standing directly inside it right now. One small choice today does not just change your tomorrow. It rewrites the story the enemy has been building against your life for years. Many are called, but few receive the instructions. If your spirit is burning right now, the Chosen One's blueprint holds the roadmap God designed specifically for people like you. It includes the complete audiobook, so you can carry this revelation with you wherever you go, plus a bonus ebook, Activating Your Prophet Mantle. For those who sense God is preparing them to speak with authority. Find it in the first pinned comment below, available for a limited time only. And now let's go deeper into what that one small choice actually means. Because most people hear that and think it's about willpower. They think it's about waking up earlier, or eating better, or finally starting that thing they've been putting off. And yes, those things matter. Small disciplines are not irrelevant. The rhythm of your morning, the way you steward your body, the things you consistently choose to begin, these are not insignificant. But the choice I'm talking about runs far beneath the surface of habit and discipline. It goes all the way down to identity. It descends past the layer of behavior, past the layer of emotion, past the layer of willpower and motivation, and lands in the deepest chamber of who you believe yourself to be. Because the real reason most people never take the one small step that changes everything isn't laziness. It isn't fear of failure. It's something far more subtle and far more dangerous. It's that they have spent so long living inside a version of themselves that was never true, that they no longer know who they would even be if they changed. They have worn the borrowed garment so long that it feels like skin, and the thought of removing it is not liberating, it is terrifying, because underneath it, they are not sure there is anything at all. Think about that for a moment. You've been carrying a picture of yourself that was drawn by someone else, by a parent who didn't understand you, who perhaps loved you with everything they had, but filtered that love through their own unhealed wounds, their own unrealized dreams, their own fears about what the world would do to you if you dared to be too much. By a teacher who measured you with the wrong ruler, who graded your compliance instead of your creativity, who rewarded your performance instead of your depth, who looked at the vast interior landscape of who you were becoming and could only see that you didn't fit the standard. By a relationship that convinced you that shrinking was the same thing as humility, that making yourself smaller was an act of love, that silencing the things stirring inside you was somehow noble, when, in truth, it was simply convenient for someone who was threatened by the enormity of what they sensed in you. And somewhere along the way, you stopped questioning the picture. You just started living inside it. You started making decisions from inside that frame. You started editing your language to match it. You started turning down opportunities that the frame said were too big for you. You started surrounding yourself with people who would confirm it, because confirmation, even of something false, feels safer than the disorienting freedom of being seen accurately. And every choice you made confirmed the frame, and every confirmation made the frame harder to escape. That is the cycle most people never name. And what you cannot name, you cannot break. The unnamed thing has power over you precisely because it operates beneath your conscious awareness, whispering its conclusions into every decision while you remain unaware of the source. This is where the story of Gideon becomes so precise it almost hurts. When the angel of God found Gideon, he wasn't standing on a hill giving speeches. He wasn't organizing the people, preparing for battle, or walking in some visible expression of courage. He was hiding. He was threshing wheat inside a winepress, doing what needed to be done in a place designed to keep him invisible, because he was terrified of what would happen if the wrong people saw him. The winepress was a pit, a sunken enclosure meant for pressing grapes, not for threshing grain. It was the wrong tool, the wrong location, the wrong context for what he was trying to accomplish. But it offered something more valuable to Gideon than efficiency. It offered concealment. And isn't that where so many of us have been operating? Doing the work God assigned to us, but doing it in pits of our own construction, choosing hiddenness over harvest because the exposure that comes with fullness still feels too dangerous to risk. And yet the angel didn't walk up to him and say, "Why are you hiding?" The angel didn't lead with correction or rebuke or an exhaustive list of everything Gideon was getting wrong. The angel walked up to him and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." God addressed who Gideon was before Gideon had done a single thing to earn that title. He didn't say, "Once you come out of the winepress, I'll call you a mighty warrior." He didn't say, "Prove yourself in a small battle first, and then we'll talk about your identity." He spoke the name over the hidden man before the hidden man had moved an inch. And that is the nature of divine identity. Heaven doesn't wait for your performance. Heaven calls out what it placed inside you before you were even aware it was there. God names you from your future, not your present. He speaks to the fullness he designed before time, not the fraction you've managed to show in the seasons that broke you. But here's where it goes deeper. Gideon's response to being called a mighty warrior wasn't faith. It wasn't sudden confidence. It was argument. He said, "If God is with us, why has all this happened? Where are the miracles our fathers told us about? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh. I am the least in my family." He had evidence. He had a whole case built against the calling. He had lived through seasons that seemed to contradict the promises, years that felt like abandonment, circumstances that screamed the opposite of divine favor. And the evidence was not fabricated. It was real. The oppression was real. The poverty was real. The silence of heaven during those years was felt deeply and personally. And that is exactly what you've been doing. You have been building a case against your own destiny. Every time something didn't work out, you added it to the file. Every time someone left, every time the door closed, every time the ground shifted beneath you, every time the prayer seemed to go unanswered, every time the dream seemed to shrink in the distance, you put it in the folder labeled "Proof that I am not who I thought I could be." And over time, that folder became thick. It became a volume. And you have been reading from it so frequently that you have memorized its contents. But God doesn't argue with your evidence. God doesn't sit across the table and debate your list. He doesn't challenge your documentation or dismiss the reality of what you've lived through. He simply says, "Go in the strength you have, not the strength you wish you had, not the strength you'll have after you've healed enough, or learned enough, or forgiven enough, or processed the loss fully enough to finally feel like yourself again. The strength you have right now, the fractured, uncertain, quietly desperate strength that got you out of bed this morning and brought you to this very moment. That is enough to begin. Not enough to finish, but enough to begin. And beginning, in the economy of God, is everything. And this leads to something most people miss entirely. The one small choice isn't about gathering more before you move. It's about moving with what you have. It is about releasing the deeply embedded conviction that God can only use a complete person, a whole person, a person who has arrived at some internal destination of readiness, before he can work through them with any real power. That conviction sounds like spiritual responsibility. It sounds like wisdom, but it is actually one of the most paralyzing deceptions that exists in the life of someone who was made for more. Because the hidden belief underneath most delayed destinies is this: I will step forward when I am ready, when the timing is right, when the fear goes away, when I feel more equipped, more healed, more certain, when the wound has finally closed enough that I can move without bleeding. And that sounds responsible, it sounds like wisdom, but most of the time it is fear wearing the costume of patience. It is the voice of self-preservation dressing itself in the language of discernment. Real divine patience is active. It is preparation with movement. It is trust expressed through small, consistent steps, even when the full picture isn't visible. It is planting seeds in ground you cannot yet see the harvest of. It is building what God showed you in a night vision, while the morning still looks exactly the same as every other morning. False patience is stillness disguised as waiting on God, when what you are actually waiting for is a guarantee He never promised to give. He promised His presence. He promised His faithfulness. He promised that the work He began, He would complete. But He never promised that the path would be clear before you stepped onto it. He promised the light would come, but only for the next step, not the full road. Stay with me, because what's coming next is the layer that breaks the whole thing open, and it's the one most people spend years circling without ever landing on. There is a voice you have been listening to that sounds like your own thoughts. It uses your vocabulary, your memories, your specific insecurities, and your personal history to build its arguments. It references real things that actually happened to you. It cites the specific rejection that came from the specific person whose approval you needed most. It recalls the exact moment the dream collapsed, the exact season when the ground gave way, the exact words that were spoken over you in anger or disappointment or casual cruelty by someone who had no idea how deeply those words would root themselves in the soil of your soul. And because this voice knows you so well, because it sounds so much like your own inner reasoning, because it is fluent in the dialect of your deepest fears, you have never stopped to question whether it belongs to you at all. But the enemy doesn't come to you sounding foreign. He doesn't announce himself with an accent you don't recognize. He comes speaking your language. He has studied you. He knows what you've been through. He knows the geography of your wound. He knows which pressure points produce the most effective paralysis. And he knows that the most effective lie is the one you generate yourself. The one that feels like self-awareness, like honest reflection, like being realistic about your limitations. And the most dangerous agreement you've ever made isn't with something that felt obviously wrong. It's with something that felt like common sense. It's with the thought that arrived in a moment of exhaustion and said, maybe you should just accept this. Maybe this is who you are. Maybe the people who believed in you were seeing something that was never really there. And you didn't reject it, because in that moment, it felt like the most honest thing you'd heard in a long time. But honesty and truth are not the same thing. A feeling can be honest and still be a lie. An assessment can be accurate and still be incomplete. And the enemy specializes in incomplete truth, in giving you enough reality to make the deception believable, while withholding the part that would set you free. When David was anointed king by Samuel, he didn't walk into a palace. He walked back into a field. He went back to the sheep. The oil was still fresh on his head, and he returned to the same soil, the same task, the same invisible life that no one would have looked at and said, "Ah, yes, there is the future king." And for years after the oil had been poured on his head, he lived in the tension of being called and not yet placed. He carried the anointing into every undignified circumstance. He killed Goliath, and then he ran from Saul. He praised God in the palace of the king who wanted him dead. He gathered mighty men, and then he hid in caves. He wrote psalms of faith in the valleys between victories. He was chosen, and yet he looked, from the outside, like a man whose life kept falling apart. And here is what that teaches us. Anointing and arrival are not the same moment. The oil being poured is not the same as the throne being occupied. And the distance between those two events is not empty. It is not wasted. It is not evidence that the calling was false, or that Samuel heard wrong, or that God changed his mind. The gap is the formation. The gap is where God builds the interior architecture of a person who will be able to carry what he is preparing to place on them. Character is formed in the gap. Depth is forged in the gap. The capacity for compassion, for wisdom, for authority that doesn't crush the people beneath it. All of it is constructed in the seasons that look from the outside like setback and look from the inside like survival. Most people abandon their calling in the gap because the gap feels like failure, because there is nothing visible to point to that says the anointing was real, because the people around you can't see what God poured into you in that private moment. But the gap is the most sacred space in your entire journey. Not the most comfortable, not the most glorious, the most sacred, because it is in the gap that you discover whether you actually trust the God who called you, or whether your faith was always contingent on the conditions being favorable. And what's coming in just a moment will shift how you see every hard season you've ever walked through, including this one. Because here's the thing about the gap that nobody fully prepares you for. It is lonely. Not just lonely in the sense of being without people, though that is often part of it. Not just the loneliness of Friday nights or empty rooms or conversations that never go deep enough to touch what's really happening inside you, but lonely in the way that only chosen people understand the loneliness of carrying something inside you that you cannot yet fully explain, that the people around you cannot yet fully see, and that the circumstances of your life do not yet reflect. It is the loneliness of being fluent in a language no one in your current season is speaking. It is the loneliness of dreaming at a frequency that the people you love most cannot yet tune into. It is the loneliness of knowing, somewhere beneath all the noise and all the doubt, that you were made for something, and not being able to point to anything in your visible life that confirms it. That kind of loneliness can make you question everything. It can make you wonder if you imagined the whole thing. If that moment of clarity was just emotion, the product of a particularly powerful Sunday, a particularly moving song, a particularly vulnerable night when you were willing to believe what you are no longer willing to believe in the morning. If the dream was just a dream, and in that questioning, in that vulnerability, most people make the choice that costs them the most. They make the choice to become smaller. They stop talking about what they sense inside themselves, because every time they do, they see the look in someone's eyes, not cruelty exactly, just that subtle shift that says they don't fully believe you, or they're worried about you, or they think you need to be more realistic. They start editing their language to match the expectations of rooms that weren't built to hold them. They start apologizing for their vision. They start describing what God put in them with disclaimers and qualifications so that no one will think they're arrogant, so that no one will be disappointed when it doesn't happen, so that they can retreat without anyone having to acknowledge the retreat. And slowly, quietly, without anyone even noticing, including themselves, they shrink back into the frame that was drawn for them by people who never saw what heaven placed inside them. But if you are honest with yourself right now, you know that the shrinking has never brought you peace. You have tried it. You have made yourself smaller, quieter, less expectant. You have lowered the ceiling on your own life, and you found that all it produced was a more manageable kind of emptiness. The tension didn't go away. It just went underground. It has only brought you a temporary relief from the discomfort of being misunderstood. And there is a profound difference between peace and relief. Relief is the absence of tension. It is what you feel when you stop pushing against the thing that was resisting you. It is what you feel when you finally put down the weight, not because you have carried it to its destination, but because you have decided the destination was probably never real. Peace is something else entirely. Peace is the presence of God, even when the tension is still there. Peace is the quiet, unshakable knowing that beneath the uncertainty and the waiting and the loneliness, something is happening that your eyes cannot yet verify. Peace is the anchor that holds even when the storm is still raging, because the anchor is not attached to the surface conditions. It is attached to the unchanging nature of the God who holds you. And the one small choice today is the choice to stop settling for relief when you were built for peace. Now, this is where I need to challenge you with something that might be the most confronting thing I've said so far. The thing that has been holding you back is not primarily the enemy, and it is not primarily your past, and it is not primarily the people who hurt you or misunderstood you or abandoned you in your most critical seasons. Those things are real. Those wounds are real. That pain has weight, and it has had consequences, and it deserves to be acknowledged. This is not the moment where you are told to minimize what you carried, to pretend the arrows didn't land, to act as though the betrayal didn't leave a mark. None of that is being asked of you, but underneath all of it, if you trace every delay, every retreat, every moment you turned back from the edge of breakthrough, every time you were right there, right at the threshold of the thing, and you found a reason to pull back, you will find one common thread running through all of it. And that thread is an unspoken belief that you are not the kind of person this happens for. That transformation, real transformation, divine breakthrough, the kind that rewrites your family line and reshapes the trajectory of generations, is for other people. People who are further along, people who haven't made the mistakes you've made, people who started earlier, or prayed more consistently, or never wandered the way you did. People who seem to have a cleaner story, a more linear testimony, a history that doesn't include the chapters yours does. And that belief is the most sophisticated lie the enemy has ever placed in your spirit, because it doesn't reject God. It is not atheism. It is not even cynicism. It doesn't deny that God is good, or that God is powerful, or that miracles are real, and that transformation is possible. It has even watched transformation happen in other people's lives and said, yes, God is faithful. It just quietly exempts you. It lets you celebrate everyone else's breakthrough while privately believing you are standing outside a room you were never meant to enter. It lets you be genuinely happy for others while carrying a private grief about your own standing before God. And that is perhaps the cruelest form this lie takes. It does not make you bitter toward the people who receive what you feel you have been denied. It simply makes you a spectator at a banquet table you believe you were not invited to. And until that lie is broken at the root, every step forward you take will feel like trespassing. Every answered prayer will feel like a mistake God made. Every open door will be followed immediately by the silent question, but is this really for me? Here is what I need you to hear with your whole spirit. You are not the exception to grace. You are the reason it was extended. The prodigal son did not return to the father having cleaned himself up first. He did not arrive at the edge of the property having showered, changed his clothes, rehearsed a polished testimony, and arranged his life into a presentable form before knocking at the gate. He returned in the middle of his mess, with the smell of the pig pen still on him, rehearsing his apology, not even sure he had the right to call himself a son anymore. His plan was to arrive as a servant, because servant was all he felt he could justify after what he had done with the inheritance, with the years, with the opportunities, with the relationships. And the father saw him while he was still a great way off, which means the father had been watching the road. Not occasionally, not when he had nothing better to do watching the road the way only a parent watches a road when the one they love has not yet come home. which means the Father never stopped expecting him, not hoping in a vague, passive sense, but expecting with the specific, forward-leaning posture of someone who knows who is coming, which means your delay, your detour, your wandering, your years in the far country, your seasons of wasted inheritance and broken choices and decisions that even now you struggle to forgive yourself, for none of it disqualified you from the running embrace of a God who has been standing at the edge of the horizon, watching for the first sign of you turning home. And the moment he saw the silhouette of return, he did not wait. He ran. The creator of the universe ran toward the mess because the mess was his child, and in his eyes, the return of the child was worth more than every act of wasting that preceded it. And here is the unexpected truth that reframes everything. The one small choice today is not a choice about doing something different. It is a choice about believing something different. It is the choice to accept, fully and without condition, without qualification, without the silent asterisk that says, yes, but not in my case. To accept that you are already in the story. Not the version of the story where you are still in the waiting room, not yet called, not yet ready, not yet enough. Not the story where worthiness is a destination you have to reach before the real journey begins. The real story. The one God wrote before the foundation of the world. The one that was authored before your parents were born, before the wounds were inflicted, before the wandering began, before the choices that you now use as evidence against yourself were ever made. The story where your suffering had purpose, your waiting had function, your breaking had design, where God was not absent in the hard chapters, but was present, moving, building, fashioning inside the darkness what could never have been shaped in the light. Where every single closed door was not rejection but redirection by a God who was protecting the appointed path, who was keeping you from arriving too early at a destination you weren't yet equipped to inhabit. The moment you make that choice, everything shifts. Not because your circumstances change immediately, not because the hard things disappear, or the questions all get answered, or the loneliness lifts like a mist on a warm morning. The external terrain may look exactly the same on the other side of this choice, but you will no longer be the same person walking through it, because you stop experiencing your life as something happening to you, as a series of events you are subject to, as a narrative with an author who doesn't care about the character, and you begin experiencing it as something being built for you, through you, and ultimately expressed through you for the people who are waiting on the other side of your obedience. There are people right now, specific people, people with names and faces and heartbreak you have not yet heard, who need what God has been forming in you in the gap. They need the testimony that only suffering could produce. They need the wisdom that only the wilderness could teach. They need the authority that only the cave could forge. And they are waiting, not for a polished version of you who has it all together. They are waiting for the real version of you who chose to step forward anyway, who walked through the fear and the doubt and the unresolved questions and said yes to the calling, because the God who placed it was more trustworthy than the voice that said it wasn't real. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me right now. Let these words land not just in your mind, but in the marrow of who you are. Let them become an act of spiritual warfare against every agreement you have made with limitation, smallness, and the lie of your own exemption from grace. I release the belief that I have been forgotten. I release the lie that my delay means my disqualification. I break every agreement I have made with smallness, with invisibility, with the idea that breakthrough belongs to someone else. I receive the truth that I was chosen before I was formed, called before I could answer, and anointed for a purpose that my past cannot cancel. I step forward today, not because I have all the answers, not because the fear is gone, not because the path is fully clear, but because the God who started this work in me has never once stopped completing it. I am not the exception, I am the evidence. And starting today, with one small choice, I walk in that truth. My season has not passed. It has just begun. Let those words settle into the soil of your spirit, not as a performance, not as something you say to feel better for the next few hours before the old voices return, but as a declaration of war against every structure of thought that has been keeping you in the winepress when you were anointed for the plant. Open field. That declaration is itself the one small choice. That moment of choosing truth over the familiar comfort of limitation that is the seed that breaks the ground. That is the step that activates the journey. That is the moment heaven has been waiting for, the moment the father on the road saw the figure in the distance and began to run. You were not brought to this moment by accident. The specific message, the specific words, the specific timing of this encounter in your life, these are not coincidences. There are no coincidences in the economy of God. You are here because something in your spirit recognized a sound it has been waiting to hear. You are here because the part of you that still believes, even after everything, even in the middle of all the evidence that would argue against it, that part led you here. And that part is the truest thing about you. That part is the breath of God in you, the image of the divine that cannot be erased by circumstance or wound or wandering. Honor it, feed it, step forward from it. If something in this message confirmed what your spirit has been quietly carrying, don't let this be another video you watched and moved on from. Let it be the moment you actually moved. Drop the word chosen in the comments right now if this landed for you. Share this with someone who is standing at that edge and just needs one voice to remind them that they are not too late. Your breakthrough is not on the other side of more waiting. It is on the other side of one small choice made in faith today.